Hey everyone, it's Alex and welcome to the Marvel Snap Decks of the Week. This week we're doing this completely differently because we have a ton of decks. In fact, this is the most decks we've ever talked about in a given week. Let me just give you a quick breakdown here. We have 5 decks for the brand new Sanctum Showdown mode. We have our Dormammu deck for the weekend mission. We also have some decks that have been super high performers over the last 30 days if you're looking for something consistent. And this is also going to be post-infinite untapped stats while also minimizing the impact of OTA affected cards. And then we have a top 5, which is specifically related to the OTA decks and what has been changed and the best performing lists since the OTA. So let's get started. We're going to go from the top down, I suppose. So we're going to start with our Sanctum decks, and the first is going to be Sanctum Loki, running a 59% win rate. Arishem and Loki continue to be a pretty good combination, in particular in Sanctum Showdown, where they're able to cheat out some like pretty big power cards kind of early. The turn structure can, you really benefit from having that extra energy because, you're combating for specific locations. And the nice thing about Arishem is you have a lot of early tech here. You have the Alliaths, and Alliath can be very impactful in the mode because you're able to just wipe out a lane when they're trying to contest it, especially if you have initiative and they're trying to play something like the Guardians. And of course, you have the Guardians yourselves. Galacta does make this deck despite the fact it was recently nerfed, but still, overall, it's providing a lot of value in a shell that essentially wants to be able to play in other locations and juice the power. Overall, this deck's running a 59% win rate and a pretty decent shot at giving you what you need in the Sanctum Showdown. Now, the deck that I've actually been playing has been a variation of Zoo. I find that Showdown Zoo is actually pretty fun. It's straightforward to play. It can be challenging from a perspective of you're occupying a lot of space on the board. Hawkeye Kate Bishop represents an opportunity to clog, by the way, and the Acid Arrow is absolutely infuriating for your opponent because it simply takes up space, and well, sometimes they're going to want to be able to access those locations, especially with Showdown, and they might be in a position where they don't want to fill a location because, well, there's 3 cards there and you easily win it and able to snap it, right? So I really do like this Showdown Zoo deck. Shauna can sometimes scam you, but is able to put up a lot of significant power. Mockingbird's a great kind of release valve when you want to attack multiple locations at once with like a Gilgamesh and a Mockingbird. Honestly, the deck absolutely slaps. It's been my go-to just because it has a very straightforward, simple play pattern, while also having a couple of bangers like Rocket Raccoon and others. And of course, who doesn't love a little bit of hydration? Bobbert. And then that's going to take us to our third deck, which is going to be a straight-up Guardians-based shell. Now, I shouldn't say straight up. It does have some fun stuff in here. You do have the Black Panther. You also have Stegron, which is obviously very disruptive and can be used as a clog thing. I like the Doctor Strange because you can actually pull some decent power to another location to win it with a pretty interesting snap. Medusa is interesting because, at some point, mid's going to be the one you want to contest, so Medusa does provide some very inexpensive high-strength power. Although Untapped really does like this deck, I don't know if I'm a fan of Lizard in this shell, despite the fact that it is a very solid early-game winner. I just find that some of these games go a little later, and Lizard does often find itself in a fully occupied location. Drax and Crossbones, excellent power plays with 4 power, and Drax specifically being a Guardian, and Crossbones really good with the likes of Lizard and Medusa. I do like this shell a lot. It is capable of winning games in Sanctum Showdown. Now, I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, Alex, you're not known for having an incredible sense of style. Why do you look so good right now? Well, that's because I'm wearing clothes that have been made with passion. I'm wearing Into the AM gear, and guys, does this not look phenomenal? Look at this shirt. This is a glow-in-the-dark graphic tee. It fits phenomenally. Yeah, this is a sponsored segment here, but I'll be honest with you. It's not catching my arms. It's comfortable. It fits me perfectly. You know what? Maybe you're one of those gamers that's like, you know what, Alex? I don't want a graphic tee. I like the basics. I want a wide variety of color selection. I want something that fits me nice, feels good, very breathable. You got it here in the basic tee. Feels good. I got to tell you, I'm impressed, but it's not even my favorite. I gotta be honest with you, this active tee from Into the AM might be one of my favorite shirts I've ever worn. It is unbelievably comfortable, incredibly breathable, it fits me perfectly, doesn't catch my arms, I have a full range of motion. Guys, look, I'm exercising. Into the AM doesn't only have shirts and stuff, they have pants too. And honestly, they're super comfortable. There's actually a 4th of July sale happening right now that offers up to 60% off site-wide, and you can stack my code for another 10% off on top of that. If you want to look good and feel just as comfortable, go to the Into the AM website by using the link in the description down below. Get 10% off your order while also supporting my content with every purchase. Continuing with Sanctum Showdown, we do have the 62% win rate Showdown by night. It features a lot of different Guardians here. I actually shouldn't say a lot of different Guardians. You essentially have five Guardians. Okay, there's a lot of Guardians in this deck. But it has the Werewolf by night shell. And Werewolf is actually making a bit of a comeback, specifically in this mode. You're able to kind of transfer that power over and over again. I like Shang-Chi in this deck. Gwenpool actually does really well in this list. And of course, it does have Galacta as well. Surge in Sanctum Showdown has been pretty good because you're often able to like chain those cards together and get some additional value from it and make some pretty explosive plays. This is the only kind of game mode you're ever going to be finding yourself playing group, but regardless, a lot of on reveals here, allowing you to bounce that Werewolf by night around, relieving like kind of like pressure from one lane and adding it to the other in order to try to like get those points from your opponent. So that's running a 62% win rate. And then we go to Showdown Surtur. This is currently the highest win rate Showdown deck according to Untapped-based statistics, running a 63% win rate. And honestly, it doesn't surprise me. You have the Surtur, which consistently climbs in power throughout the course of the game. You have the very high impact plays of like Ares, which can solo win a lane. You have the Enchantress, which is a great tech piece right now, because honestly the Zoo component is actually pretty popular right now, and so Enchantress does provide you with a lot of decent tech. And of course you can use Enchantress to knock out the Typhoid Marys, knock out the Lizards, and etc. Ebony Maw, really strong card. Although in this particular shell, you're obviously hoping to have that Zero Ebony Maw play or the Sauron Ebony Maw play. Of course, you don't want to lock down a location because that is pretty damn sad, especially if you're trying to contest it for like, 5 Sanctum points or whatever, right? So do be very cognizant of how you play Ebony Maw. But overall, Showdown has been... I like Showdown. I know that it kind of grinds people's gears after a while, but at the very least, I think that, it's a fun little kind of... It's a fun mode to play that feels quite different from standard ranked, which is what we're talking about next. Now, obviously, Dormammu came out this week. There was a lot of excitement around Dormammu, but in terms of actual performance, he's actually underperforming expectations right now, according to Untapped-based statistics and Infinite only, over the last 7 days. Dormammu, this is currently the top performing shell, running a 52% win rate and a 0.10 cube rate, which is abysmal. Like, this is not a good cube rate deck. And you might be thinking, oh, so why don't you show us a good cube rate deck? Well, because this is also one of the best cube rate decks, unfortunately, for Dormammu. He's really underperforming. It's sad because I do think the card is a lot of fun to play. I think it does bring something really interesting to destroy. I'm concerned that perhaps it's the first stage that's a little too slow, because the second and third stage are bangers. They're great. The second stage is basically a Laufey. The third stage allows you to activate things like Bucky Barnes, right? Which I think is fantastic. It's that first stage that feels slow. And so I guarantee you that if Dormammu underperforms, they're gonna buff it, because I think it was a very popular card that was purchased by a lot of people, and I think they invested so much effort into the design that they want it to be good. They want it to feel like a Thanos or a High Evo or a Galactus. Like, they want it to be legit. So it would not surprise me if Dormammu got buffed, despite the fact that early testing is showing that perhaps it's underperforming our expectations. Okay, that's Dormammu. The next set of decks are decks that are basically using the last 30 days of Untapped-based statistics, Infinite only. And the reason why I include this is because we have a very small sample size of decks since the OTA, and so stats are kind of all over the place. And so these decks have minimal OTA impact. There might be a card or two like Red Guardian that got impacted, but realistically, Red Guardian is not a huge deal in a deck like this because he's still super good, you know what I mean? And so it's okay to include him here. But I tried to minimize the OTA impact on these particular decks if you're looking for something that's been a consistent performer over the last 30 days. And this is basically a Surge-based Toxic Shell. I think Ajax is phenomenal and honestly an underappreciated card in Snap. These decks don't see a lot of play, even in the 30-day stats. I think this was like 890 games or whatever. But I'm telling you right now, this features some of my favorite cards in Snap. I love Diamondback. I think Diamondback's fantastic. I think Malekith is fantastic. I think Ajax is fantastic. Luke Cage is fantastic. Surge is fantastic. Red Guardians. These are all great cards. It's basically good Toxic. 59% win rate, 0.41 cube rate. You really can't go wrong. So if you're looking for something consistent to play, this is definitely a solid option for you at number 9. Number 8 is going to be Agent Bounce. We actually have 2 back-to-back Agent Agent Deck, sorry, I almost forgot his name. Agent Venom, the next one's Agent Havok. Agent Venom. And so Agent Venom's been solid. I mean, when he was released, he was essentially broken. He got adjusted slightly. Still 2.5 that has a fantastic ability. But the thing about this particular shell, and in my testing with it, is like, I keep going back to it. I love Toxin. I think Toxin was one of the best cards they've designed over the last year or two, because it really created space for the archetype to breathe. Like before, Bounce was like Falcon, it was Beast. Like you had these options, but like you just needed something more. You needed a little more. And Toxin is this very straightforward, easy to play card that really amplifies a deck like this. It really made Bounce easier to play and much more engaging to play. And so as a result, I strongly recommend this deck, especially if you're trying to learn Bounce. It's great. It really is. And Surge is obviously the icing on the cake. Shadow King, the good option as well. Shadow King does a lot of damage in the current meta, so it's good to see as a tech piece. Just make sure you don't Shadow King your own cards, because that's very capable. Like you can Silver Sable something and then Shadow King it back to full HP or HP power, or obviously reduce your Rocket or Silver Sable's power by Shadow King it. So just be cognizant of that. Going to number 7, as I did mention, it is Agent Havok, and this has been one of my favorite decks over the last couple of months. I absolutely love Havok. This deck does feature the Merlin side, and once again, I will say, Kitty Pryde not making these decks surprises me, but it goes to showcase the power of the Hood and the Demon combination, what you're able to do with Surge. Like Merlin, of course, generating the skills that doesn't give you that combo play to play on top of the Angela or to proc the Athena with 2 cards per turn. Athena carries in this deck. I think Cassandra Nova is great here because I think that Airsham and Thanos has been changed quite a bit, but Thanos still being popular. Sage is a phenomenal closer, such a great closer, and Red Guardian represents such fantastic tech for so many different matchups. And honestly, you'll be surprised how powerful Havok is. I mention it all the time, but if you are new to playing this type of deck, you never play Havok on turn 2, you always play Havok on turn 4. The reason for this is because that when you play Havok on turn 4, he does proc up very, very quickly. However, you'll have 4 energy, which allows you to play like Cassandra Nova and the Demon from Hood, or Sage on the final turn alongside a spell from Merlin, or whatever, right? 3-drop, 1-drop, 3-drop, 1-drop, because you have 4 energy, meanwhile Havok's gaining his power. So that's the way you play this particular shell. I love it, I always have, and I hope you give it a shot if you haven't already, because it's running a 61% win rate over the last 30 days. It's an absolute banger. And here's the thing. Slowly but surely, the win rate on Mercury decks has increased. The 30-day stats, according to Untapped-based statistics, is 61% on this Mercury deck with a 5.9 cube rate, which is quite impressive. This deck running the Alioth, Cannonball, Negasonic, Red Guardian. It's basically like I Hate You. It's an I Hate You deck, essentially. I should change it from Mercury to I Hate You deck. Listen, I've always looking for a reason to play Negasonic Teenage Warhead. It's a card that I almost never play, and if you can give me a reason to play it, I just want to. Also, Fenris low-key over the last couple of months has been an absolute banger card. There was that Fenris Surfer shell that has been performing very, very well. It's kind of new. That's why I didn't feature it here on this particular list here. But honestly, Fenris has been an absolute banger. And you have a lot of cards here that take advantage of it. Even Gladiator can hit something solid for Fenris to bring back. And obviously, you do have the Dormammu being as popular as it is. Even if people are still testing, experimenting with it, you can do some damage there, right? So I do think that it's particularly cool right now to play some Fenris Wolf. And now we're going to go to our statistical top 5 based off of the OTA Untapped-based infinite statistics. As I just said, the next top 5 decks are going to be focused on Untapped-based statistics since the OTA Infinite only, and I tried to focus on new, interesting things that were kind of emerging in the meta, and Miserable Beta Ray, that's actually kind of tricky to say if you want to say it out loud with me. Miserable Beta Ray. 56% win rate and a 0.56 Q rate. Hey, 5656. And I listen, this is a really fascinating list. Using Misery to reproc the hammers and the Stormbreakers and the everything, that's really fascinating. It is a classic Beta Ray Thor Lady Jane deck. You do have the King Eitri, but you also have the Fire Hair, which is really interesting because you can obviously you could play Fire Hair, destroy the stuff with Misery, and then you're just double dipping on those procs, right? Thor goes hard, Beta Ray goes hard, and then you got the Shangers for all the tech and everything like that. You got Shangers, you got Shadow King, you even got an Invisible Woman in this list. It's a really fascinating list. I was testing it, and the lines are kind of funny, but honestly, it's cool. I love the idea of pairing Fire Hair and Misery together alongside Thor and Beta Ray. And so this is one to keep an eye on. I bet you I bet you the win rate gets higher as more people play it and practice playing it, because I think it's a very unique shell that people haven't been playing. So I think they're taking suboptimal lines at times. I mean, I know I was when I was practicing it, but overall, super impressive list. I'm glad it's back. And then we go to number 4. Number 4 is going to be a Redwing Dump deck. That's right. Redwing is taking a massive dump on the meta, 57% win rate and a 0.41 cube rate. Now, this particular shell, I think only had 290 games on it from Untapped. So pretty low play rate, but I mean, everything since the OTA is pretty low play rate. And that's why we feature the 30 decks and everything like that, the 30-day decks. But you got a Zorn Redwing deck featuring Hulkling, Infinite, Giganto. You got Blink in there. It's kind of funny because like this deck almost wants to be like, it almost looks like a Nightmare shell, right? Like it almost has the makings of what Nightmare was supposed to be. But ultimately it just has like just banger cards, high value cards that work well with Zorn. And it's running some decent stats. And I would be remiss if I didn't bring it up because I feel like I got to do it once a week. I got one of my favorite variants in the deck. Look at this Luna Snow. And, it took me a long time to figure out which color border to go with. I went with the pink because it matches the microphone. Do you agree with me? Let me know in the comments, but I think this is an absolutely banger variant there. But yeah, this deck's been a great one. I really do like it. I think it's fun. Redwing has been one of those cards that's like, it's almost reaching for greatness. And there's been moments where like Redwing almost is like, oh man, the latest changes, especially with Zorn being added, Redwing got buffed prior, obviously. Like, Redwing is close to being legit, very close. And this has been one of the absolute top performing versions of Redwing I've ever seen playing Snap. And now we're into the top 3, and that's going to take us to a 57% win rate Khonshu deck. Nothing crazy here. It looked as though some people after the OTA were like, man, I don't know what to play. I guess I'll play some Khonshu, and Khonshu is honestly a pretty solid list, running a 57% win rate and a 0.43 cube rate. It's always been pretty good, and this deck does feature the Corvus Glaive line, which I do tend to like because it gives you some optionality with how you play Khonshu alongside the Scorn, because you have that extra energy. I like getting Scorn down if I can, because especially with the amount of discard that's happening here, I find that Scorn does generate quite a bit of value. Obviously, you have the Gambit, which can be a game winner. And finally, we're seeing some Proxima Midnight gameplay in a non-Surfer deck for the first time in a while. I know that Alex, Proxima Midnight and Surfer deck. Well, remember, we had that Fenris Wolf Gambit deck that was playing Proxima Midnight from a Surfer shell. So I liked, listen, I just love Discard. Discard is one of those decks that, like, I honestly haven't been playing as much lately. I used to play a ton of Discard. It used to be my go-to deck. It used to be like Discard and Surfer I would mix through. And now I just haven't been playing as much Discard, but I think I'm going to play more because obviously, the Bullseye creation was of mine, my design. And ever since then, I was like, man, everyone's playing the Bullseye deck, which is still good, by the way. It didn't quite crack. Like, the Khonshu version of Discard is performing slightly better statistically right now, according to Untapped, over the Bullseye version, so that's why I featured it. I try to keep, like, different types of archetypes. But still, listen, I love Discard, and maybe I'll have to play a little bit more, given how much I love it. Miserable Victoria Hand coming at a 58% win rate and a 0.53 cube rate. This deck has a lot of disruption in it along the sides of the Acid Arrow from Kate Bishop. You have the Juggernaut in here. Obviously, you're generating a lot of cards alongside the Iron Patriot. You got the Frigga. You do have the arrows from Kate Bishop. You have Nico. A lot of options here. I do like Anti-Venom in this deck, and sometimes you get like banger plays where you can like actually stack using Anti-Venom, Victoria Hand, and Moonstone together to really amp up the power. Obviously, Speed loves Moonstone. A lot of Moonstone enjoyers in this particular deck. But yeah, Victoria Hand performing well has been something I've been really looking forward to. It's also kind of funny that Kahori doesn't make these shells. Like, oh man, Kahori, I think, I don't want to say Kahori's a good card that's not being played, because there's a reason why it doesn't see play. But in these like hand gen decks, I would love to see Kahori make some of them. And like Sentinel, man, Sentinel, Kahori, I've been leaning into the Sentinel shells so much when I lean into like those Kahori, Victoria Hand stuff. I'm always playing Kahori in Sentinel, and it was never quite cracked the top 10, Like I know why people like Iron Patriot, but if you really want to cook, maybe get rid of the Iron Patriot, right, and put Sentinel. If you don't have Frigga, put Sentinel in there. I'm just throwing it out there, right? You don't have Anti-Venom, put Sentinel in there. But ultimately, it's a good shell, a very interesting shell, and obviously running the Misery as well, which is particularly unique here. And that's going to take us to our number 1 deck of the week, and that is going to be Annihilus by Night. Do you remember the good old days where Annihilus was going absolutely crazy? And this is kind of a callback to that. Obviously, Annihilus and Werewolf by Night used to be absolute best friends, and then a lot of stuff happened. Annihilus got nerfed, Sentry got nerfed, Viper got changed, which is a positive thing, but now this shell is utilizing a lot of the new hotness in Snap, including Merlin. It's got the Surge in there. It's got Captain America Sam Wilson. It's even got Agamotto, which even though, like, when I saw this was, like, the #1 shell, I was like, okay, I gotta play a little bit of it. I still don't like the dilution that Agamotto creates. I'm not sold on Agamotto this time. I'm just going to throw it out there. I know it's #1 deck, but like for me, I'm like Agamotto, question mark. Obviously, Winds of Watum is awesome in a shell like this. Bolts of Ballsack has a place in it. Werewolf by Night loves those things, right? But overall, I think that Annihilus is probably better than we're giving it credit for. Even though junking things is hard, but Merlin isn't seeing the play rate we expected. Honestly, it's not. And so there's a chance you're able to bounce some stuff over, clog their side, and they don't have the Merlin polymorphs ready to counteract them. This Shizhal ain't playing their own Anni, right? They're not playing their own Annihiluses, not playing their own Vipers. And so I think the clog and kind of a little bit of that disruption is fascinating. And the 4/9 Sentry, obviously immune to something like a Shongers, makes that Void very dangerous for your opponent. And obviously you can kick over the Void, you can send it over with Annihilus, you can kick it over with a Viper, you can Merlin it with a Polymorph. You got tons of options. In fact, Sentry's probably the best card here. Anyways, guys, that's the top 10. We talked about 1,000,000 decks today. Thanks so much for watching. I sincerely appreciate it. Click that video somewhere on the screen. It's like in that corner. Yeah, that corner right there. If you want to watch some more content, and we'll see you on that next one.